The trolley problem, except we're saving cows. Welcome back to Philosophy of Ethics. Peter Singer is one of the most well-known utilitarians of our contemporary era. Singer only retired from Princeton University in 2023, where he taught ethics and bioethics. His fame in utilitarianism often surrounds his strong and well-presented stance in favor of animal welfare. In the last video, this is the influence map for the utilitarians we covered. Peter Singer is, as of this video, firmly against the type of utilitarianism of Mill, and so I've placed him in the opposing camp along with Sidgwick. So what's this thing about the cows? This version of the thought experiment is a very abstract way to put the problem of animal suffering, and I think finding a common denominator first will help this make sense. Is it wrong to kick a tree? Kind of a silly question, but maybe? We'd have to have some very specific context for why kicking a tree would be wrong. Maybe it's somebody else's tree and they've already politely asked you to stop kicking it. However, it seems to be the extra information that would make it wrong. So the answer is probably no. If you're just kicking a tree, it's not wrong. Next question. Is it wrong to kick a dog? Wow, what a different question. Instead of struggling to invent context to make this immoral, we seem to have the opposite situation. Violence against an animal needs major context for justification, and so it's likely only justifiable in something like self-defense. While most sane people won't ever ask, the ethicist still needs to know why it's wrong to kick a dog, but not a tree. Singer's answer is something we've seen in a lot of these videos. Not only is pleasure and pain the clear decider for right and wrong here, but in particular, the human species isn't special. The whole community is all creatures that can feel pleasure and pain. Ultimately, Singer's position is that it is inconsistent of any utilitarian to be biased in favor of human happiness, especially at the expense of other creatures. Those that are guilty of this partiality are speciesist. Important note, Singer does not advocate for animal rights. The language here is important because he is a utilitarian. He advocates for their happiness. The former concerns moral obligations and permissions, but Singer only cares about happiness because that's the true utilitarian value. Back to the trolley problem with the cows. If we're not going to be biased towards humanity, if we're not going to only care about the happiness of humans, then at least at some number in cows, we're going to have to accept that pulling the lever on the human person is better for the whole community. Singer comes out of the gate swinging. Racists violate the principle of equality by giving greater weight to the interests of members of their own race when there is a clash between their interests and the interests of those of another race. White racists do not accept that pain is as bad when it is felt by blacks as when it is felt by whites. Similarly, those I would call speciesist give greater weight to the interests of members of their own species when there is a clash between their interests and the interests of those of other species. So, yes, Peter Singer thinks most of humanity commits the same mistake as the racist in their approach to animals. This doesn't mean that there's a one-to-one equity thing going on here. Individuals aren't special, but the valuable part is still net total pleasure. Singer's best example is as follows. If I give a horse a hard slap across its rump with my open hand, the horse may start, but it presumably feels little pain. Its skin is thick enough to protect it against a mere slap. If I slap a baby in the same way, however, the baby will cry and presumably does feel pain, for its skin is more sensitive. So it is worse to slap a baby than a horse, if both slaps are administered with equal force. But there must be some kind of blow, I don't know exactly what it would be, but perhaps a blow with a heavy stick, that would cause the horse as much pain as we cause a baby by slapping it with our hand. That is what I mean by the same amount of pain. And if we consider it wrong to inflict that much pain on a baby for no good reason, then we must, unless we are speciesist, consider it equally wrong to inflict the same amount of pain on a horse for no good reason. So, how many cow lives equal one human? It's a real utilitarian question. It doesn't need to be a 1-to-1 ratio, but those cows feel pain, and if the price of beef were to go up $1, plenty of people would feel that pain too. I'm not going to answer the question for you, But for your perspective, the average American eats 7,000 animals over the course of their life, including 11 cows. Singer gives many examples of speciesism in practice. In particular, one of his most common examples is using animals as food. To get meat to an affordable price, it requires the animals to be pretty miserable. This conveniently also creates maximum revenue for the corporations in charge. Our experiments on animals are also radically unacceptable. While the occasional justification can be made that this is better in the long run, the vast majority of the time, positive long term results aren't even possible. LD50 tests are literally just to discover the lethal dose to make all animals sick, 50% die, and 50% don't. Also, we already have hundreds of safe chemicals for cosmetics, food dyes, etc. Testing for new ones only helps company profits. There are also plenty more examples he could use here, including circuses, rodeos, zoos, and the pet business. He also addresses those who would disagree. A point that he honestly spends too much time on is whether or not animals feel pain. Come on, of course they do. If animals eat each other, then that's permission to eat them. Maybe we shouldn't look to less intelligent species for moral guidance. They often have no other means of survival, and we do. They don't have a faculty of choice to choose otherwise. Just because something happens doesn't make it ethical. And also, this has nothing to do with factory farming, which is much closer to his target. Humans and animals are different. So what? What matters is happiness, not intelligence. Also, it's not as great of a difference as we usually like to think. As a final note, outside of this particular text, Singer has a great answer for how the regular person can make the world a better place. Prioritize the care of animals in your area. If you cannot do anything else, these are the lives that you can make better. As always, thanks for watching.